Hey guys, thanks so much for tuning back here again for another video. This is Son of Liberty. So today's video is going to be a bit departure from the content that you guys are used to seeing here on the channel, but not so far off the beaten path that we lose sight of what this channel's focus is really about, which is knowledge enhancement as well as sharpening our own skill set. Now, if you're here watching this video, I've got to congratulate you because you are one of the few. What I mean by the few is you are less than 10% of the gun community that actually seeks out additional training to expand their own mindset. So if you guys are like me and you're used to looking for classes to take, then you guys will know not only how rare a class like this is to come available, but also too for it to be open to the civilian populace. With the political climate being what it is today, being as volatile as it is today, and just fluctuating as frequently as it does, I knew that this was a class that I had to take. Not only could it be beneficial just to expanding my own knowledge, but it could be very well something that could save my life or the life of someone else at some point. So I do want to apologize in advance for the audio clarity. We were in a very large room and I was using a boom mic to try to get as close to the speaker as possible. With that being said, you guys are going to be hearing some background noise, maybe a door opening from time to time, as well as students talking and sometimes asking questions. All this was recorded in real time, but again, I want to thank you guys so much for taking the time to come here and check this out to expand your own mindset. I hope that it helps. Enjoy part one.
There's a ton of skill sets that me and Kevin were responsible for learning. Almost overwhelming. I was a sniper, I was a comms guy, I was a joint turner air controller, I was an assaulter, I was a breacher, I was a technical reconnaissance guy, I was a driving instructor, I was a TTL tracking and locating guy, the list goes on. It becomes overwhelming. But when you think about it in terms of kind of how it correlates to you guys, the reason we are so diverse in our skill sets is because we need the exposure. It's not necessarily we need to become subject matter experts, because this course won't make you an expert. This course will give you the exposure so you understand principles, so you can apply it to further training. I mean, if you're into this stuff, you'll be doing J-turns in the Walmart parking lot. That's your level of commitment. But we for example, I've been to BSR, hard surface driving off-road, off-road driving with BSR, Team O'Neill Rally Race Car School, Blackwater, the driving school, the instructor school, Bondurant, the high-speed driving school, the list goes on. And what all that stuff taught me is my limitations. It didn't teach me how to be a badass driver, it taught me what I couldn't get away with, right? So, what you have to understand is a lot of your life is spent in the vehicle. And when we talk about mobility, we talk about it in the context of using it as an extension of your capability to either get out of a bad circumstance like bugging out, breaking contact, or moving overland to sustain your survivability. I look at vehicles completely different now than I did. And my first Jeep, which I still have, I bought in 1998. I used to off-road all over North Carolina. Then I went through a phase of Corvettes and RX-7s and high-speed cars and realized whatever my car was going to be a car that had capability. It had to have the right tires, had to have clearance, had to have the fuel capacity. Somebody asked me yesterday, can you do a J-turn in your truck? And I was like, yeah, I'd probably flip that thing and die, but I can do it for you. But I've sacrificed some of that for, some of that invasive tactics for the ability to go overland and bug it out. That's my principal bug out vehicle for me and my family. Today, our focus is going to be on you learning in a controlled environment the ability to understand how cars operate and what you can get away with. We're going to teach you a series of evasive, defensive driving tactics that you could use in any circumstance where you feel like your life is potentially compromised. I look at these protests and that woman who was in that circumstance where she was boxed in, for example. Kevin Owens is going to teach you a tactic when you're boxed in by vehicles to break out. J-turn, the ability for her to be boxed in at a checkpoint or a blockade and to move in reverse and swing the front end of that vehicle around, taking violent protesters with her, and then bugging out as fast as possible, but maintaining the integrity of the speed. The ability for you, if somebody's hitting you or trying to take you out, and defending against that, and pitting somebody in addition to that. The ability for you to be blocked in and ram yourself out of a circumstance. I have 7 cars that I bought for this class. That I bought and I had sitting for all the classes. These cars will only last this class, because by the end of the day, we are going to destroy them. We are going to utilize them, and they were bought for you based on the course fee that you paid. The first thing I'm going to talk about is the principles of each maneuver, so you have it in your headspace. So when we go out there and you're looking at stuff, you can understand kind of the physics behind what's taking place and why it's taking place. What I found is, even when you're teaching the tourniquet, yeah, you're going to teach to apply a tourniquet, but if you understand the principle of how a tourniquet works, you could use your belt, you could use your t-shirt, you could use anything. So I'm going to teach you the principles of these maneuvers, and then when we go out there, we'll execute. We'll get it done. And my training objective, the terminal learning objective for today, is to have everybody here crossed off as a T, as a go, meaning you don't leave here until you have confidence that you can accomplish those tactics. How old are you?
16.
Yeah, boy, that's what I'm talking about.
Hell yeah.
Is that your dad? Yeah.
Unfortunate.
Hey, some of us were born into it, man. All right, so the first thing is vehicles. We have different types of vehicles. Name me a type of vehicle drivetrain. What kind of vehicles do we have drivetrain-wise? Front wheel drive? All wheel drive? Full-time all wheel drive? Rear wheel drive, right? Does anybody here know your vehicle and what kind of drivetrain it has? You guys know? Give me some, throw out some answers to that. What do you got?
Rear wheel, all wheel.
Oh, what kind of models you guys got? What do you got? What kind of car you got?
Me? I have multiple.
Give me a couple.
I have the Raptor here.
Oh, the Raptor. Okay, that's a good car.
Subaru Legacy.
Subaru Legacy, all-wheel drive. Not full-time or full-time?
I guess it's all wheel symmetrical, so I guess it's
All-wheel full-time.
Yes.
Yep. Dan?
Raptor. Awesome.
Oh,
That's it.
yeah.
Prius. I got G Compass.
Yeah.
I got Ballin.
You got a mix of, what kind of car are you?
Me?
Yeah.
Audi
Audi what?
Q3.
Q3, that's all-wheel drive. Yeah. Okay, so the first time I realized this is when I went to Team O'Neill. I went through a GRS course, which is, if you don't know what GRS is, Global Response Staff for the CIA. So we provide security and protection, but we're mobile. My job was to drive case officers around, facilitate their security, and make sure they don't get killed in a combat or austere environment. So when I went to this school, the focus was, you don't know what vehicle you're gonna get. You might just fall into a piece of crap vehicle, and you have to figure out the limitations of that. Because if you take a case officer on a joyride, and you run into some problems, and you don't understand the limitations of those vehicles, you're gonna be in a world of hurt. You're gonna be in a world of hurt. And I've seen it happen, guys. So this course was designed at Team O'Neill to take front wheel, rear wheel, and all-wheel drive, and have you do slaloms, push the limits of them, rally style training, and then see how they handle in various forms. For example, I grew up this is before Fast and Furious, in the import scene. I used to race Civics that you put Frankenstein engines in, front wheel drive, 12-second quarter-mile Civics. Naturally aspirated, meaning no turbo, no superchargers. Front wheel drive cars, drive chain is obviously linked to the front wheels. All the power is transferred to the front wheels. And that has certain limitations. One of them being, you can't do a pendulum turn, for example. A pendulum turn is the ability to use the momentum of the vehicle, the rear end of the vehicle, to swing it around a turn so you don't have to get on the brakes and slow yourself down to decelerate and then re-accelerate. That's really important in high-speed evasive driving, because if I have to go into a corner and I smash on my brakes, I'm one, limited by the brakes, and hopefully they're good brakes, but I've burned out plenty of brakes in race car school before. And then I go to decelerate, I'm going down to almost zero. Right? I'm stopping, and then I'm accelerating and punching the gas. Well, the biggest limitation is most front-wheel drive cars are pretty slow. They're slow cars. So now I'm going slow, almost to a stop, and then going fast as I can go, which isn't really fast. So if I have a rear-wheel drive car, for example, I could pendulum turn where I'm going into the corner of the turn. I basically drive the front end of the vehicle in this direction with my foot on the gas and brake, gas and brake, and then jack the steering wheel, and I'm going to use jack a lot, I'm sorry, that's just the term that it works effectively, just whatever. Jack the steering wheel this way, and then, or to the right, and sort of swing the rear end of the car this way to keep the turn. It's not a drift, it is a pendulum turn, where I'm keeping torque applied to the wheels, and we are never slowing down to zero. We're maintaining the speed and acceleration. You see a lot of pendulum turns in gravel rally and off-road rally, where the driver comes in and he shoots off in the opposite direction of the turn and then swings the ass in around really wide like he's drifting, but that's not drifting. Drifting is using the e-brake to brake traction, reapplying acceleration, which applies torque to the rear wheels, and then using that momentum of torque to spin myself around, which is actually, in some cases, especially with off-road and gravel, an effective means of going around a corner. But a hard corner doing this and then this, you want a pendulum turn. And you can't do that in a front-wheel drive vehicle, so you're limited. Rear-wheel drive vehicles. What's the limitation on a rear-wheel drive vehicle? What do you think?
Traction and oversteer.
Both really good answers, traction and oversteer. A big problem with rear-wheel drive vehicles is the drivetrain is all on the rear end, which brings all the energy to the back of the car. So it kind of does this, it loads the rear end. So that's why you get that massive amount of oversteer and loss of traction because the front tires aren't applied evenly. I mean, you're basically hot rodding. That's why they're called hot rods. It's because the front end used to get up all the time, and it'd be really hard to keep those front tires on the ground. One of the biggest problems with rear-wheel drive vehicles is handling. Because when you have a rear-wheel drive vehicle where the power transfers through the rear wheels, and then you decelerate, and then you have to re-accelerate, the front end lifts, and if you're doing that in a turn, creates oversteer. And if you're doing that after you've made the turn, it creates a lag in the momentum for you to transfer power. So the power is lost, and then it's slowly gained. The first time I realized this when I had my 1996 Corvette C5, it was the cool version, it was a Grand Sport version. So it had the blue paint job with the tick marks for the timing, the white stripe. I was like, oh man, this thing's badass. And I went around the corner and punched the gas and broke the rear end, which threw me into a curb. And I tried to play it off and act cool, like nothing happened, but it's hard to do that when you rip your rim off your tire. So the rear-wheel drive vehicles are typically powerful type vehicles. GM is doing it, but they're not great handling vehicles. American culture for motorsports has always been a straight line, the drag strip. We haven't paid a lot of attention to cornering. That's where all-wheel drive comes in, right? All-wheel drive changed rally, and Audi was crushing it. I mean, Audi changed the entire world with German engineering, with all-wheel drive race car driving. Is it?
Quattro.
Yeah, the Quattro. The Quattro is a beautiful car. I'm trying to find one for under 70K. I mean, they're the old ones, especially the group cars, AV, are really, really expensive.
I have a question. I mean, what surface are you talking about? Because on a rear wheel, you won't have understeer. So if you're at high speed turning, you know, I prefer rear wheel than all-wheel drive if it's on dry pavement.
Yes, well, that's the biggest consideration, but
I mean,
what I look at is I look at the probability.
right.
So you say off-road driving, and this is inherently a cultural issue. Somebody comes to me and say, Mike, what tire do I get? And I'll say, okay, tell me how much time you spend off-road. And they'll say, well, I spend most of my time off-road. And I go, is your car your daily driver? Yeah. So how do you spend most time off-road? Well, I don't spend most time off-road. I go camping and I go trailing. Okay, so you don't spend most time off-road, and I'm gonna say it's probably 95% of your time is spent on-road. So if we're looking at considerations for tire, mostly I'm talking about hard surface. Because we think, because of rally, I say the word rally, I'm a rally guy, I like rally. But I will never be off-road in that capacity, more likely saving my life in a vehicle, it would be very limited. It's mostly going to be hard surface, right? You go into a protest and people start banging on your hoods and you have to break contact, you're not going to be off-road. I would consider it the application for rear, front, or all based on the highest probability of what you do. I want an all-wheel drive vehicle. I'm a big fan, but my Porsche 911, for example, it's rear-wheel drive, but it's one of the most balanced rear-wheel drive vehicles on the planet. So it's got a lot of symmetry to it. So I don't run into issues inherently that GM Chargers and Challengers run into. Finish your point.
No, I mean, I guess I was just more technical. Like you're saying, the probability you'd rather have a smart all-wheel in a variety of situations than rear wheel. But I'm just thinking like in a higher speed, like not if you're on a block and you're confined, if you're trying to maneuver, I guess, at higher speeds. That's not like, I'm just saying like it's not a huge disadvantage, I guess.
It's not. I didn't say it was a huge disadvantage.
Like I wouldn't want a front wheel for any of it.
Absolutely. Point taken. If you're looking for a really high-speed technical horse, this is like the Commodore 2000 version of that, right? I'm talking to the lowest common denominator, which is somebody who has no skill sets. If you want technical, Team O'Neill is the place for you for technical. Probabilities is what I'm talking about. And when we look at probabilities, look, you have decisions to make based on your family. Like I choose vehicles based on families. I really want a Porsche 911S. It'd be really cool. But that's not really functional in my environment. So what is the answer? Well, there is no answer. We're talking about limitations. There are limits to all of them, but the bottom line is if you don't have the money to buy a Ford Raptor, you're going to buy the Honda Civic and just live with it, which is cool. I mean, if you learn to operate what you got, people, oh man, I want to get the best AR-15. How about you just work in the confines of your budget and you spend the rest of that money on training and ammo? That's what I do.
All right, guys, so that's going to be a wrap here on today's video review, but I hope that you guys were able to find a nugget of information that you guys can store away in your mental toolbox for later down the road. Now, if you're not a subscriber, please consider hitting that subscribe button. I would love to earn your subscription each and every review. Consider hitting that like button, turn your bell notification on, or if you're so inclined, leave a comment down below. All those things not only are going to help the algorithms, which is going to help this channel get out there to be seen by more people, but it's going to help this channel continue to grow. And to all my subscribers, I want to thank you guys so very much from the bottom of my heart. Your support really does mean the world to me. I just want to say from my family to yours, have a very Merry Christmas and a wonderful New Year. Until that next video, guys, take care. Be safe.